Baruchim Aboim B'Shem Irgin Shir Torah Moses Boston. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's shir. All the men here in the main shul, all the women upstairs and downstairs, and everyone who's tuning in through the live broadcast and listening in through the telephone. Baruchim Aboim to everyone. I'd like to remind the Olam Irgin Shir Torah's annual dinner is coming up just in a few short weeks on August 15th. It's the perfect time of the year to show Yakaras Atov to Irgin Shir Torah, to any particular Maggid Shir whose shiurim you've enjoyed, by putting an ad in the journal, which will be distributed at the dinner. Call Irgin Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email tapecenter@yeshivanet.com to have this great schos, or to have the great schos of sponsoring one of the shiurim, and have the schos of the Abotzes Torah, the Rabbim of Irgin Shir Torah worldwide. Tonight I would like to give a big yashikach to Mr. and Mrs. Dovi Nirenberg for sponsoring tonight's shir exclusively. Tonight we have the cover to have with us Rabbi Heshy Kleinman, Shlita, author of Praying with Fire. We got the Mazel Tov. He had a Zainikel, had a bris this morning. It was the son of his son, Rabbi Daniel Heshy Kleinman, who was supposed to speak but got called away for the bris. We're happy to have him with us to discuss the important topic of your personal Tefilah, making it why it matters. Rav Kleinman, Shlita.
It's a schus to be able to speak on such an important topic, to such a choshev ha'olam. I'm going to begin with a story that came to my attention last year. It was a story about something called WannaCry. Now, WannaCry, this took place in May of last year, was a computer virus. This computer virus affected well over 250,000 computers in over 150 countries, and it caused damage in the hundreds of millions of dollars. How did they stop it? So it seems that there was a 22-year-old British researcher who unintentionally, and for him luckily, came across something called a kill switch. The kill switch is a switch that the authors of the virus left in the virus code. And this individual, again, unintentionally, accidentally, was able to activate it. The kill switch is used to activate, to close a machine in case of an emergency, and was able to stop the virus. Now, don't forget, this 22-year-old had no experience, no education, he had no money. He literally came across it unintentionally, and it was able to stop tremendous potential harm from spreading across the world. And when I read the story, I was amazed not only by what happened, but immediately I thought to myself that is it possible that an individual who's so young, who's really not educated, he's not an expert in his field, he's not wealthy, even doing something unintentionally can actually have such an impact? The answer is yes. And when I thought of the ramifications, I immediately thought of the idea of Tefilah. You see, Tefilah is a tremendous koyach. And what I'd like to share with you this evening, Be'ez Hashem, is to talk about the koyach HaTefilah, and not only the koyach HaTefilah itself, but the koyach that each and every individual, no matter who the person is, the koyach that that individual has. I'll begin with the Gemara. The Gemara tells us, "B'ni chayu mezoini loy b'schusi toli ela b'mazel." Children, chayi our life, mezoini our panosa, our wealth, the mezoinos, the panosa that we need to support our families. Says the Gemara, loy b'schusi toli ela b'mazel. It's totally in mazel. It's totally in mazel. What happens if somebody has a bad mazel? What do you do then? It's not totally in schusim. That means somebody won't have panasa because his mazel is bad. What can he do? So the truth is that Tosfos alludes to the question, and Tosfos gives an answer. Now, there's good news in Tosfos' answer, and there's bad news. The good news is, Tosfos says that b'schus gadol you can mishana mazel. Wonderful, great. That's the good news. The bad news is, Toshes doesn't tell you what the schus gadol is. So we know that if somebody has bad mazel, he can change that bad mazel with a tremendous schus. What is this tremendous schus? So the Toshes Yontif reveals the tremendous schus. Zok the Toshes Yontif, the schus is Tefilah. And not only that, says Rabbeinu Bechaya, that the whole reason why the Gemara tells us B'ni Chaim Zoini Loi B'schus Toli Ela B'Mazel is to teach us this Yesod about the tremendous Koyach HaTfilah, that if unfortunately somebody has bad mazel, Lo Yoleinu, and nothing's going to change it, because a regular schus of a mitzvah is not going to change it, it appears. He's only Eitzah according to Toshes and according to the Toshes Yontif explanation, says Rabbeinu Bechaya, is the fact that B'ni Chaim Zoini Loi B'schusi Toli Ela B'Mazel, and you can change it with Tefilah. Tefilah is this tremendous koyach. Tefilah is our kill switch. If somebody has bad mazel, he can change it with Tefilah. But Tefilah is much more than just a kill switch, that it can change a bad mazel. The Gemara tells us in Shabbos Daf Yud Amud Aleph, says the Gemara that Tefilah is called Chayei Shor. Says Rashi, l'refuah, l'panasa, l'shalayim. The Tefilah can be a tremendous chus for an individual if he davens for refuah, for someone's gesund, if he davens l'panasa, and if he davens for shalayim. Chazon Ish, older brother, used to say that the Chazon Ish's great stature as a Talmid Chacham, that thousands came to him for eitzes, was based on many things, but there were two things that stood out. Number one, the Chazon Ish learned Torah Lishma, and second of all, the Chazon Ish placed tremendous emphasis when he said, "Atachoyne lodam das and Shemaina Esrei," that the Eibush should give him the das, the Chachma, to be able to answer all the shilas that he has. The Gemara in Nida Daf Ayin Amud Beis tells us, "Ma yasa adam v'yichakein." Says the Gemara, Yavakshu Rachma Misha Chachma Shalai. The Chazon Ish was familiar, he was aware of this Gemara, and he knew that if he wants tremendous Chachma, he has to be Mavakesh Rachma Misha Chachma Shalai. The same Gemara, 2 lines later, said, Ma Yas Adam Yisashe. What should a person do if he wants to become wealthy? And the Gemara's Maskoni is the same Maskoni, Yavakesh Rachma Misha Shalai. He has to daven to who has Ashiris. Who has the Ashiris? The Eibishter. The Eibishter has more money than anybody that we know, including Bezos. Okay? The Eibishter has more money, said the Pasuk, Li'akesav li'azov num Hashem tzavakais. If a person wants Panasa, a person wants Ashiris, again, that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara goes weiter. Ma yas adam yila bonam zechorim, said the Gemara the same, Yisai, Yavakish Rachma, Misha bonam shalai. A person should daven HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that she have children, he should have hatzlocha in children. I'd like to share with you a true Maisa, a very contemporary Maisa. It's a Maisa of a young couple. I happen to have included it in the book Praying with Fire years ago when the book was written. It's a story about a young couple, and they were living in Eretz Yisrael. He was learning in Koilel, steiging away. And what happened was, after a year, they had a first child, a son. And unfortunately, the little boy was born prematurely, and he lived for only 11 hours. He was nifter. So they were heartbroken. And this younger man went to Reb Chaim Kanievsky. And he wanted a bracha, he wanted a unique bracha, unique tzchus, he wanted something special, something unique. He was already learning in Koil, he was already steiging, he was already doing wonderful things, Ma'asim Tovim, and he wanted to ask Reb Chaim for this unique tzchus. They had been told that perhaps they would not be able to have children, and they were very concerned. So they asked Reb Chaim. He said, what can we undertake? And we're willing to do anything. What can we undertake to ensure that Be'ezus Hashem will be able to have children? So when they waited for Reb Chaim's response, they were a little bit nervous what Reb Chaim was going to say. Reb Chaim looked up at them and said, Zayt Mispalo. Zayt Mispalo, David. So this younger man, he thought that maybe he didn't explain it clearly enough to Reb Chaim. Again, he explained, what happened, that he wanted this tremendous, unique schus. And again, Rav Chaim looked up at him and said, Zayt mispal. And when he started to explain again the third time, Rav Chaim looked at him and said, Zayt matzliach. That was it. Tefilah. I happen to know about this story personally. And in fact, this story is the story of my son, the one that made the bris this morning in Los Angeles. Baruch Hashem, it's a child number 7. Everyone's doing fine. Tefilah is a tremendous schus, tremendous koyach. Gemara also tells us, Gedoyla Tefilah Yosemi Maisim Toivim. And whose Maisim Toivim are we referring to? We're referring to the Maisim Toivim of Moshe Rabbeinu. Tefilah is called Devarim Ha'oin Barum Shalayla. Truth is, there isn't anything that Tefilah can't accomplish. Tefilah reaches this tremendous height. Dvarim Ha'oin Barum Shalayla. And the question that I'd like to address, Be'ez Hashem, is, if Tefilah is Dvarim Ha'oin Barum Shalayla, and we know from experience, whether it's been Klal Yisrael through the years when they went out of Mitzrayim, the Avos and the Yemois were Akorais, or whether it involves individuals who use the Koyach HaTfilah. So why are people mezalzel? Why are people mezalzel the Koyach HaTfilah when you know something works? When you know something is so powerful? When we see it b'ayneinu in front of us, b'fonenu, we see what's going on. We see that whenever there's a crisis, we utilize the Koyach HaTfilah to stem the tide and to turn everything in our favor. Why, when something is so powerful, can a person be mezalzel? So once a story of a Yerushalmi Yid. His name was Rav Zundel Kreiser. Rav Zundel Kreiser, Rav Chaim Kanievsky used to say about Rav Zundel, that Rav Chaim was makanim, because Rav Zundel could sit and learn a whole day. Rav Chaim was involved with Klal Yisrael, answering all the shilas. And Rav Zundel, after Shacharis every morning, would have Bachurim crowd around him. And they would throw questions his way, questions from what they were learning in the Gemara, questions in Halacha, questions in Musa, in Ashkofe, in Agadata, questions from all over. And Rav Zundel would be able to answer everyone's question. One boy had a following question. He asked Rav Zundel, he said that he doesn't have a cheshek to learn. What should he do? He doesn't have a cheshek to learn. What does Rav Zundel say? What's his eitzah? So Rav Zundel thought a moment, and Rav Zundel told him that be mechazik your emunah. Bacha didn't understand. He asked the question again, and again Rav Zundel told him, be mechazik your emunah. After all the other Bachim left, this Bachim went up to Rav Zundel, and he asked him to explain. So Rav Zundel told him like this. He said, if you really had emunah, that Torah is kiheim chayenu b'oyach yameinu, it wouldn't be shaykh that you wouldn't have a cheshek. If somebody really is margish, you internalize and you truly believe with every part of your body that Torah is kiheim chayenu, so how could you not have a cheshek for that? This is your life. B'oyach yameinu, it's the schusim. How could you not have a cheshek to learn? I believe the same yesod applies to Tefilah as well. If we really believe that a person who davens with leiv, that a person who davens with kavanah, if a person has trust in the Eibishter, that the tefillahs will be heard and will be accepted, then I think people would not be mezalzel Tefilah. Tefilah wouldn't be boring. Tefilah wouldn't be difficult to do. Tefilah would be something that everybody would want to rush to do. The Gemara tells us that in order for Tefilah to work, the Gemara says the following. This is in Rosh Hashanah Yud Ches Amud Aleph. Shnayim she'alu l'mita v'chuyin shaveh. Two people are sick, they have the exact same illness. V'chein shnayim she'alu l'gadim lidon v'dinin shaveh. Two people have been sentenced by the king to death, and they both have committed the same crime. Zeh yorad v'zeh lo yorad. One gets up, but one doesn't. Zeh nitzel v'zeh lo nitzel. One is saved, one is the other one isn't. In fact, the Gemara, b'pnei ma zeh yorad v'zeh lo yorad. B'pnei ma zeh nitzel v'zeh lo nitzel. Says the Gemara, the one that was answered was Hispalel Tefilah Shalema. Spalo Tefilah Shalema Nana. The one that davened, that said a Tefilah Shalema, a complete Tefilah, he was Nana, he was answered. The other one, Lo Yispalel Tefilah Shalema, he was Lo Nana. Says Rashi, you know what Tefilah Shalema is? One word, Nischavin. Pashit. The pshat is that the person who was answered had kavanah. Frek Rabelo Lopion, how could it be? They both have this illness and they're both destined to die. They're going to die from the illness. So you mean to tell me that the other one, what, he didn't daven a Tefilah Shalema? What was he thinking about? Well, he's going to take vacation next week. The person is on his deathbed. How is this shayach that Nischavin means that he didn't have kavanah? So therefore, says Rabbi Lopion, the pshat of Tefilah Shalema Nischavin does not mean he didn't have kavanah. The one who was not Nischavin pshat is he didn't have the confidence that his Tefilah has the koyach. He davened the way we daven. You know, we daven kind of like when there's nothing else to do, I may as well. When you lose all hope, it's like the last resort. And that is not the way we're supposed to utilize the koyach HaTefilah. The Mashor in Kiddushin, Daf Chof Tesam et Beis, tells us that Tefilah is not this miracle out of the bounds of the normal cause and effect of the world. Says the Mashor, Tefilah works the same way the Eibishter created the Bria. There's cause and effect. When we daven, and if we daven the right way, then we are answered. And the Gemara tells us the story of Rabbi Yaakov who came to the town of Abaya. In Abaya's town, no one dared enter the shul because of a frightening. There was a mazik in the shul that roamed around inside. They were all afraid. So they seized the opportunity to get rid of the mazik. So what did they do? Abaya made sure that nobody would invite Rabbi Yaakov a place for him to stay in anyone's home. And therefore Rabbi Yaakov had no choice. He had to go into the Beis HaMedrash. When he confronted the mazik, what he did was, every single time he bowed in Tefilah, one of the heads of the mazik fell off and they killed the mazik. Frak the Mashor. What was Abaya thinking? Abaya would allow Rabbi Yaakov to put himself in a Mokum Sakoneh, to go in a place where no one dared to go in the Beis HaMedrash where the mazik was roaming, where everybody was afraid as to what would happen if they came in contact with the mazik. Abaya, what did he do? He told everyone, no, don't let Rabbi Yaakov stay by you. Let's have him, make him go into the shul, into the Beis HaMedrash. What about Ein Soimchen El Hanes? So, and for the Mashor, this Yesod, that when a person davened, it's not called a Nes if he's davened and he's answered. It's not called that it's B'derech HaNes. It's called the regular Al Pidech HaTeva, which means that is the Yishtadlus that we're required to make. Says Rav Simshad Abba Pincus. That's why when there's a crisis in Eretz Yisrael, when there's an Adam Gadol who's sick, what do? Even if we're learning, we close the Gemara and we say Kapitach Tilim. Why? I Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Says Rav Simshad Abba Pincus, no, a person has to do with the Shtadlus. And when a person davens, that is considered to be his ishtadlus. Not only that, typically if a person is zoicha with the schus, we say manakaloi mizachi yosav. It reduces some of the other schusim that he might ordinarily have had. Said the Mashor, by Tefilah you don't say that. Because Tefilah is not this unique, out of the realm of the cause and effect of the Bria. Tefilah is the way the Eibishter made the Bria. We daven, we get answered, we daven properly. The Eibishter wants to answer us. And this Yesod is built into the Pasha in Bereshis, where the Pasuk tells us about Adam Arishon v'Adam Ayin Lavedus Adome. The world was just about ready. Everything was created. The Eibishter was waiting for what? You know what he was waiting for? He was waiting for the Koyach HaTefilah. He was waiting for Adam Arishon to daven, says Rashi. And once Adam Arishon daven, now it's part of this is the way the Bria works. It's not something unique. It's not a Nes. It's not something we reach for. Like when there's an emergency, what else are you going to do? I've done everything according to my Yishtadlus. No. Tefilah is built into the way the world works. If we daven properly, we daven with leiv, We daven a Tefilah Shleima with the confidence that the koyach HaTefilah that we have in our hands is real and it's vital. And it's tremendously powerful. When a person davens with that belief, then the koyach HaTefilah can do anything. This applies to everyone. It applies to me, it applies to you. Story with Rav Chaim Shmulevitz. He was davening at the cave of Rachel Imenu on a yahrzeit. And he heard a woman davening on the other side of the mechitza. And this woman was saying, Mama Rachel, you know what it means not to have children. You know the hardship of living many years without children. Can't you help me? Those were the only words that she said. Rav Chaim Shmulevitz sent the Talmud to the woman's home with the following message. Your tefillahs have been accepted in Shemayim. Be'ezus Hashem, next year you will have a boy, and I wish to be the sandig at the bris in Kachoya. This was the story told over by Dayan Donna at an Aguda convention many, many years ago. And when he explained it, he said that this woman was not a tzaddikus, she was not anything unusual. She was a simple individual who believed in the koyach tefillah that she had in her hands. And therefore, that's why she was answered. Tefillah is varim ha'oim the rumah shaloylam, but why are we mezalzel? Could be we just don't have the level of emunah as to what Chazal tells us about the koyach tefillah. But I believe there's another hurdle. And I believe that we have to overcome this other hurdle. And be'ezus Hashem, if we'll be able to overcome the next hurdle, I believe that will open up the floodgates of tefillah for each and every individual. Several years ago, I came across a book. It was called The 100 Greatest Heroes, inspiring profiles of 100 men and women who changed the world. And it wasn't limited to just Americans. It ran the gamut of people across the globe, and it also ran across the generations. Let me give you some of the names on the list. Perhaps you're familiar with them. Number 74 was Babe Ruth. Maybe you don't know about him. Number 64 was Golda Meir. Number 7, we don't have time to go through the majority of the list. Number 7 was Christopher Columbus, discovered America. Number 4 was Winston Churchill. Number 2 was Abraham Lincoln. And number 1 was George Washington. That's the list. When I took a look at the list, I was a little bit surprised. I was expecting to see somebody else. I don't know, you're probably thinking of your favorite hero. Could be everybody has their own hero. But the hero that I was thinking, that to me, it was a no-brainer, he definitely should have been on the list, was Noach. Noach. What did Noach do? Noach's legacy was humanity. Because of Noach, we are here. There was a Mabul, Noach builds the Teva, and saves humanity. Why wasn't Noach included in the list? The list of the 100 heroes that changed the world. So I believe the answer lies in the Haftorah and Pashas Noach. If you take a look in the Haftorah Pashas Noach, the Eibishter promises never to have another Mabul. And what does the Pasuk call the Mabul? The Mabul is called Mei Noach. Mei Noach. Isn't that a plea? Noach. He saved humanity. No. What did he do? It's everybody else. They were the ones. Kehishkas called Basa was everybody else in the generation. Faket. Noach was the one. He wanted them to do tshuva, and he waited, and he's banging in nails for 120 years to no avail. Nobody did tshuva, and that was it. The Mabul came. So why does the Pasuk call it Mei Noach? Says the Zohar. It's true, Noach, he did a wonderful thing. He built the Teva, yes. But you know why we call the Mabul Mei Noach? Because Noach should have davened to save the generation. Noach, you had an opportunity to do something. You could have saved the door. Why didn't you daven for them? What do you mean, why didn't you daven? The Eibusher tells Noach, Yishchitz kol basar, that's it. The door has got to go. It's not going to work out, said the Eibusher to Noach. So why is Noach faulted? This is the terrible generation. Says the Zoya, Afal Pi Kain, it's true, there's a Gzeira. But you know what the Koyach HaTfilah is? Noach, you know what you could have done? You know what you could have accomplished? Noach could have saved the generation. Noach could have davened, and he didn't. Noach. You know why Noach didn't daven? Because Noach didn't have the confidence that his tefillah would make that difference. Who was Noach? Noach, a man with 2 letters in his name. That's it. Noach, okay, Lignai, Lishvach, whatever the pshat is in Rashi. But Noach felt, my tefillah, little old me, Noach, I'm going to change the gzeira on the whole generation. Kehishchas kol basar. My words at tefillah has that koyach. How could that be? You see, Noach didn't believe that his koyach had tefillah. His koyach had tefillah said, Noach, no, I don't have that ability. And the truth is, this is the furthest thing from the truth. Says Rav Moshe Nigris Moshe Yeredeya Chelik Dalet Siman Nun Aleph. Listen to the words of Rav Moshe. A psak halacha said Rav Moshe, Tfilas kol adam ruuya sheteskava v'tishoma. The tefillah of every individual, Rav Moshe Paskin, every individual is royal to be heard, to be accepted. And av tfilas anshe pshutim of balei aveiros. Even someone who's an anshe pshutim, he's nishkein tzaddik. He's not a big Talmud Chacham. He doesn't have great Maisim Toivim. He doesn't have other Schusim. But you know what he has? He has what it takes. Because he has the Koyach HaTfilah. Said Rav Moshe Shalakain called Tfilah Nechsheves Aruyelis Kabel. I mentioned the Zoya that Noach should have davened for the generation. Listen to the following story as to the koyach that we have in contemporary times. It was said that the Chazon Ish had Ruach HaKodesh. He was able to tell the future. It was an open book to him. So Rav Shmuel Greineman asked the Chazon Ish, why didn't you predict the Holocaust and stop the Holocaust? Chazon Ish said, it was hidden from me. It was hidden from me. Had it not been hidden, I would have davened and I would have galvanized Klal Yisrael to daven. And I read this story in Rabbi Franz, one of his books. And I called him up and I said, how can I say this? To say that Tefilah Mamish, the Holocaust, it could have stopped it? Taka, true. Yes, it's true. And I double-checked it today. And it's true. Rabbi Fram writes it. And it's not only that, says the Chazon Ish, we could have stopped the Holocaust. In 1932, the Chafetz Chaim was near the end of his life. He was heartbroken about the terrible plight of the Jews in Russia. One Shabbos with his family around him and his Talmidim, the Chafetz Chaim began to speak. He said, there's only one hope. Mashiach must come soon. The Chafetz Chaim said, it's up to us. It's up to us to hasten its arrival. Chafetz Chaim said, why are we being silent? Why don't we daven to the Eibishter? It's our duty to arouse the people to daven for the Geula. And then in a soft voice, the Chafetz Chaim talked about the story of the Beis HaLevi. The Beis HaLevi was invited by the Jews of Bris to become their Rav. When he refused, they pleaded, Rebbe, 25,000 Jews are waiting for you. How can you disappoint them? And the Beis HaLevi had no other alternative but to accept. He had a tremendous love for Klal Yisrael. The Chafetz Chaim said, imagine if millions of Yidden would daven to the Eibishter to bring the Geula. The Eibishter loves us. There's no way the Eibishter would refuse. Noach, Kehishkas Kol Boso, he should have davened. The Chazon Ish, about the Holocaust, if he would have seen, he would have galvanized, he would have galvanized Klal Yisrael to daven. The Chavetz Chaim in 1932 to bring the Geula. We have a tremendous koyach tefilah. And like Moshe says, it doesn't matter if we're Anshe Pshutim or Bali Aveiros. But we have this tremendous koyach because we are Tzelem Elokim, we have this neshama. And every morning, you say it, I say it, we all say it. Elokai neshama shenasat bi tahirahi. It's tahira. What happens on the outside cannot change the fact that the neshama is tahira. And the fact that we have a neshama tahira, we all have the ability and the koyach hatfilah. No matter who we are, no matter what we've been through, no matter what we've done. They say about a motivational speaker, he comes in and he takes a $100 bill. This is a real $100 bill. He holds it up and he asks people by a show of hands, who would like to have the $100 bill? Nobody wants it? No? Yeah, oh, there it is, one. Okay. There you go. And then he takes the $100 bill and he crumples it up. And he holds it up and he says, who would like to have this crumpled up $100 bill? You don't want it anymore, no? And the same hands go up. And he takes the crumpled $100 bill, he throws it on the floor, he stomps on it, picks it up. It's frayed, it's dirty, it's ripped on the edges. He holds it up and he says, who would like to have the $100 bill? And all the hands go up again. And the question is why? Who wants a dirty, old, sullied, ripped, nearly shredded $100 bill? You know what the answer is? Everybody does. You know why? Because it's not the way the $100 bill looks on the outside that everybody wants. It's the value, it's the essence of the $100 bill. We all have an neshama tahirahi. We are all like the $100 bill and more than that. And it doesn't matter what we've been doing. It doesn't matter who we are. We all have that tremendous koyach hatfilah, that tzelem elokim, that neshama, that we plead and we daven to the Eibishter with the emunah, the tefilah shalema that we mentioned. That is our koyach hatfilah. And it's not just the standard tefilah that we daven in the morning, shachris and mincha and ma'ariv. The koyach hatfilah we have is in the koyach of our own personal tefilah. Rabbi Victor Miller used to tell people that when you're in business and a customer comes in, say a quick tefilah that the customer should pay you the price that you want and that he should be satisfied. The Gemara tells us when a person goes under a medical procedure, he has some medical assistance, and not just for an emergency. A sprained ankle, a sore throat, a headache, a cut finger. Say a tefilah. The Mishnah Berurah tells us that there's a nusach. Yehi ratzim l'panach Hashem Elokai she'esek zeh li l'refuah ki roifa chinam ato. It's for a regular procedure. Say a tefilah. The Shlach HaKodesh advises each individual should say a tefilah for every single need. Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid in Sefer Chasidim tells us that in the Shemona Esrei, say your own personal tefilah. And not only that, the Mishnah Berurah cites the Chaya Adam, Nachon v'Roy l'chol Adam. It is proper and worthy for each individual to spalo b'chayim, be yichud specifically al tzarachav v'panasasai. And you know something? You don't have to say it in Lashon Kodesh. V'chol ma she'yayda believer, whatever he knows, she'tzarach lavim eino yedei l'davet zechay b'Lashon HaKodesh. Yoim rena b'Lashon Ashkenaz, rak she'yem mikiras libay, from the depth of his heart. Tremendous koyach that we have. This tremendous koyach is the koyach in our standard tefilah. It's a koyach in our personal tefillah. And as I mentioned before from Rav Moshe, you don't have to be a Bala Madrega. You don't have to be a tzaddik or a tzaddikis. You can be the simplest Jew as long as your heart is ticking and you have a neshama, which we all do. You can reach out to the Eibishter with this koyach HaTefillah. I'd like to share with you a story that I heard many, many times. The story takes place in 1944. It's a story that my mother, Aleh Shalom, used to tell me. And before she was nifta years and years ago, she would tell it to me more than once. Maybe she was trying to convey a message that this is a story I should never forget. My mother was from Hungary. And in 1944, the Nazis, Yamach Shemoy, came to round up the Jews. My mother tells me that there was an old dilapidated hotel. And in this old hotel, which can hold 250 people tops, they threw 750 Jews in there. And they were there for a week. And she was there with her sister, with my aunt. And they were safe. There was a curfew at 5 o'clock. And they went into the town. And when she went one day into the town, she met her old neighbor, the Gentile neighbor. And the neighbor said to her, "Why don't you come, stay by me? I'll hide you in the attic and you'll be safe, you'll be sound, it'll be fine." My mother didn't know what to do. She had a dilemma. So she told the lady, we are where we are. We've been safe. We feel with friends. We feel it'll be okay. So the lady said, "Look, whatever you'll do, it's your decision. I'm going to be here around 5 o'clock. I'm going to go home. If you're here with me, fine. If not, not." My mother tells me that she went back about 4:30, and all of a sudden, about 20 to 5, she had a pachad. She started to shake, started to tremble. What should I do? Should I stay? Should I go? She didn't know Pashut what to do. She told me that the clock is ticking. The gates are going to be closed by 5 o'clock, and that'll be the point of no return. So she told me, she said that I just had this feeling. I grabbed the hand of my sister at 10 to 5, and I said, "We're running, we're leaving." My sister protested, she said, but we were going. They went on the road. 5 o'clock came. The gate shut. Couldn't go back. They went into the town. 5 o'clock, 5:10, 5:15. No neighbor. Now what do we do? 5:25, the neighbor shows up. And she takes my mother and her sister to her home and hides her in the attic. The night is fine. The next morning, the lady goes shopping. She comes back at around 12 o'clock, and she starts screaming for my mother to come down, come down. She's screaming. My mother thought maybe this is the end. We've been found. She comes down, and my mother says, what's the commotion? So she throws the newspaper on the kitchen table. And on the kitchen table is a picture of the hotel that she was staying, burnt to the ground, and the burnt corpses in front of the hotel, all killed. That was the story. So I asked my mother. I said, "Ma, how did you know what to do? You were saved. How did you know?" So I'll never forget what she told me. And again, she told me the story many, many times. She said, "I did what I always do whenever I have a dilemma. I look up heavenward with my hands open and I say, Zisa Bashefa, sweet Creator, help me, guide me, give me the understanding and the wisdom to be able to make the right choice, because you're going to guide me in everything that I do." My mother was not an educated individual. Could be she, 4th grade, 6th grade, I don't know what kind of schooling they had in those days. But she knew, or maybe it was an instinct that she had, that the koyach HaTefillah is available to any individual. And it's not just the standard tefillah, as I mentioned before. It's the personal tefillah. Anybody, if ever a person has a need, all we have to do is believe in the fact that the Eibusha is listening. And we have this tremendous koyach to be able to connect. And if we daven with the confidence that the Eibusha wants to help us and that we have the koyach HaTefillah, then that koyach is tremendously powerful. I mentioned before the story with the Chazon Ish about how if he would have galvanized Klal Yisrael to daven to prevent the Holocaust. I mentioned the Chofetz Chaim. They both had the confidence that each individual has this tremendous koyach hatfilah. I'd like to also mention Rav Tzadok HaKohen. Rav Tzadok HaKohen is in Sitkas HaTzadik, Ois, Kuf, Nun, Daled. Listen to what Rav Tzadok says. Says Rav Tzadok, Kishem shetzarech lahamin b'Hashem yizbarach. Just like a person has to have emunah in the Eibishter, kach tzarech achach lahamin b'yatzmai. A person has to have emunah in himself. Ratzaloyme, that means to say, sheyesh laHashem yizbarach esek imai. That the Eibishter deals with us, the Eibishter watches us, the Eibishter wants us to succeed. He said, "Sarach lahamin ki nafshi mi mikoach hayim is baruch shemai." That we have a tzelem Elokim, that we are connected to the Eibishter. And if a person has emunah, but he doesn't have emunah in himself, said Rav Tzadok, that he's missing something in the level of emunah. Because emunah just doesn't mean that there is a God in the world, that there's an Eibishter. Emunah means that the Eibishter is involved in each and every one of us, every single step of every single day. And that's why if a person has a need, no matter what it is, it can be a big need, it can be a small need, it can be something that's life-threatening, or it can simply be to find a parking spot in Brooklyn, which is very difficult to find. No matter what it is, a person should daven. And if we're not davening at that time, obviously you're in your car, you're not going to be saying Shachos, Minchu, Ma'ariv, so what? You can still say a personal tefillah. We have that tremendous koyach tefillah which is available to everyone. Last week, somebody sent me a letter. I'd like to read to you a letter, a Ma'aseh Shehaya, which is about the koyach tefillah that an individual has. Here's the letter. He writes, about 9 years ago, my father-in-law was admitted to a hospital over here in Brooklyn. After a few days, another patient was wheeled into the room. He became my father-in-law's new roommate. We got to know him very well over the next few weeks, and he was very, very ill. He didn't know anything about Yiddishkeit. He always told me that he wished he would have been taught more. On Shabbos, he said that he's not turning on the TV in the hospital room out of respect for us. And when they brought food to my father-in-law, they brought food for him as well. He had no immediate family. He became part of my family. After a few weeks, his condition worsened, and ultimately he passed away. The letter continues. I remember that his distant cousin, whose name was Rona, was totally secular, wanted to cremate the body. And my wife and I decided we couldn't allow this to happen because he was Jewish. I said to my wife, what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to do? And so she said again, but we cannot let this happen. So he writes, having no prior experience in the matter, I thought of reaching out to Miss Askin. I called him and they told me that he should not worry about the cost of the burial, but we had to take care of getting the body released. She said, when I asked them how to go about doing that, they had no idea. After a few more phone calls from my wife, and my wife pushing me to do something, I did the following. Now listen to this. I sat at my desk before I made the phone call, and I said the first 10 kapitals of Tehillim. Then I said the following tefillah. Ata choynei lo odom das, please Hashem, I am now going to call Rona. Please Hashem, tell me what to tell her to convince her that she should not cremate the body and to allow the nifta to have a Jewish burial. I picked up the phone and I dialed the number, not having any clue what I was going to say to her. After some small talk telling her my condolences, I started telling her the importance of having a proper Jewish burial. Unfortunately, it fell on deaf ears. She even asked me, she asked, do you believe in God? I replied, of course. So she said to me, well, if that's so, we'll cremate the body and we'll put his ashes in the living room and God will find him. What was I supposed to answer? At that very precise moment, I felt that there was a sudden bolt of understanding. Hashem sent me the following thought. I said to Rona, let me tell you something. This hospital has 3 floors. There are about 40 rooms on each floor, a total of 120 rooms. If your cousin would have been wheeled into any of the other 119 rooms, we would have never known him, and this conversation would have never taken place. But he was not wheeled into the other rooms. He was wheeled into this room. And you know why? He said, I told Rona that he was wheeled in precisely into this room so that he should have the proper burial. There was silence on the other side of the phone line. I went on how a cousin was yearning for Yiddishkeit that unfortunately he was never taught in his lifetime. And he writes, she started telling me that the cost of cremation is far less than burial. I assured her that Masaskin would pick up the cost. And the funeral took place the very next day, July 4th, Yud Tammuz. I called up my friends telling them that they should come to the Levaya. Even though it was a legal holiday, we had about 25 to 30 people covered on mace. And he finishes the letter. My biggest nachas was when Rona came to me after the funeral, crying like a baby and thanking me for having convinced them not to cremate the body. And he concludes, Baruch Hashem, I was zeicha, through my personal tefilah, to bring a Jewish soul to have a proper burial. For the last several years, my wife and I have been going every year on or around his yahrzeit to the cave. And he writes, he was zeicha to have the proper burial. I don't know what he did in his lifetime for that. But Baruch Hashem, with the insistence of my wife and with Hashem's help, giving me the right things to say at the time that I needed to know what to say, we did what we had to do, and Baruch Hashem, we accomplished a proper burial. This is an individual, someone that I know, regularly Yid. But he believed that in a moment of need, and he had no idea what to say, and the Eibishter answered his Tefilah. Man once came from England and visited the Chazon Ish. As he prepared to leave, he asked what the message is that he can relay home to his fellow Jews. And the Chazon Ish told him, he said, Noach, we revisit Noach. Noach was a righteous man, perfect, tzaddik hoya b'dayroso. Chazal is teaching us that we have to judge our actions according to the generation that we're in. We live in a very dark generation. We live in a very low generation. And whatever a person does, could you imagine in this generation what a tremendous effect he can have? We sometimes think that in our generation we can't accomplish much. Listen to what the Michtam Eliyahu tells us, the opposite. He says that in a generation, the lower the generation, the darker the generation, all we need is the smallest amount, the small nakuda. Imagine on a summer night, people come to hear a shiur. People come to hear a shiur, whether it's in person, whether it's over the phone, however else they're coming to hear a shiur. There's no doubt that we are. Said Rab Dessler, you can't imagine what you can accomplish, much more that they were able to accomplish in a prior generation. It's like turning on a light in a well-lit room. If you light a match, you won't see anything. It won't accomplish much. But if I would venture to say, if we shut the lights in this base of Medrash and somebody lit a match, even the smallest match can illuminate the room. It can have such a much greater effect because the darker generation, says the Michtam Eliyahu, in our generation we can be zeicha such a tremendous amount. You can't imagine, says Rab Dessler. The lower the generation, it's a mistake that the Yetzer Hara tries to convince us. Ich bin agonish. I can't do anything. Who am I? I have no right. The Eibishter is not interested in me. The answer is no, no, and no again. We have this tremendous koyach hatfilah, and we have to believe in it. We have to utilize it. The Mishnah tells us, Bishvili nivra ha'olam. It's in every single generation that applies. I'll end with the story A story which happens to appear in day 3 of Praying with Fire. A story about a person who lives in unbearable poverty his whole life. He never has enough food. He never has enough money. He can't pay his bills. He can't help others in need. Everybody who comes into his home used to tell him that there's a treasure underneath the floorboards. But he never believed it. He said, what do you mean? You believe that? So Nebuch, at the end of his life, he doesn't have much longer to live. His friends come to say their last goodbyes. His first friend comes in, they're reminiscing, they're crying, they're hugging. They're talking about the good old days. And before he leaves, he says to his friend, he says, Moshe, how come you lived in poverty? You had a treasure underneath your floorboards. Why didn't you ever dig up the treasure and use it? And what does Moshe say? I heard that one. Yeah, they told me about that one. I never believed that. Come on. The next day, the next friend comes in. Again, they're crying. They're telling stories about the good old days, the great times that they had together. And before he leaves, he asks the same question. What about the treasure? You know, the whole city is talking about, you have this tremendous treasure and nobody can understand why you live in such abject poverty. He said, come on, I never believed that one. Okay. Third day, his best friend comes. His best friend, again, they're talking. He stays longer than the other 2 friends. And at the end, he says, I hope you meichel me, but I've got to ask you. But more than ask you, I want to check for myself. The city is abuzz with the rumor that you have a treasure. What happened? How come you never used the treasure? So he takes out his little shovel that he brought with him, opens up the floorboards, and there it is. It's a treasure. Could you imagine the charata that this person who's been living in abject poverty has? He heard this for years and years and years, and he never believed it. He never believed it. Stories. You believe stories? I don't believe the stories. Says the Nefesh HaChai. Umagid li adam ma'asichai. Achamei v'yesrim, they're going to recount to the person what his deeds were. And Rapam explains what the Nefesh HaChaim means. That they're going to tell him that you could have been Zaycha to tremendous things. To the Koyach HaTfilah. If you would have only davened. And they'll show him that in this year you could have been Zaycha to Ashiris. You could have been Zaycha to Nachas. You could have been Zaycha to Shalom. You could have been Zaycha to Refuah. But you needed to daven for those things. You needed to utilize the Koyach HaTfilah as we mentioned. And maybe it was the bad mazel. Or maybe it just wasn't enough schusim. But the schus gadol that the Tosfos mentioned, that the Tosfos Yontav Rabbi Bechaya tells us, B'ni Yichayim Azayni Loi B'schus Atoli Ela B'mazel. But with the schus gadol, you can be mashana that. It's more than the kill switch. It's gedolim mimaysim toivim. But you got to believe in it. You got to utilize it. Could you imagine the charata that a person will have? If I would have only believed what they told me. If I would have only believed what the Gemara tells us, that Tefilah can be Mashana Mazel. If I would have only believed what the Gemara tells us, that Tefilah Doila Yosemi Maisum Toiva Moshe Rabbeinu. If I would have only believed what Rav Moshe Paskins, that Anshe Pshutim Ubale Averas has that tremendous Koyach HaTfilah. If I would have only believed what the Chazon Ish says, that Rabbi Friend wrote, that the Chazon Ish would have been able to see the Holocaust, he would have galvanized himself, he would have davened and galvanized Klal Yisrael to daven to stop it. If we would have only believed what the Chofetz Chaim said in 1932, and he was willing to travel to Rav Chaim Oizer to galvanize Klal Yisrael for the Koyach HaTfilah. If we would have only believed that the tremendous Koyach we have not only with the Shachos, Mincha, and Ma'ariv, but with the personal tefillahs that a person can say, and which the Mishabura cite the Chayadim that in the Shemona Esrei in Shemay Tefilah, the kind of tzor in the middle brachas, according to whatever the bracha is talking about, you can insert your own tefillah. Rak Mikira Shlipa. It doesn't even have to be in Lashon Kodesh. If we would believe what the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah about the two people that were sick, and one person was nana because he davened a Tefilah Shalema. If we would believe what the Mashah says in Kedushin Chavtesam at Beis, and what the pasuk said, Adam ayin lavadus adama, that Tefilah is not this unusual koyach that we don't have access to. It's mamash the way the Bria works. If we would have only believed what the Michtav Eliyahu tells us, that the darker the generation is, the greater is our koyach and ruchnius. And if we would have believed what Rav Tzadok HaKohen tells us, that we have to believe in ourselves. It doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't matter where we come from. Each and every one of us says, Elokai neshama shenasata bi tahiri. We have this tremendous koyach. You know, the Biur Halacha says that in the words of Shemona Esrei itself, he said that soidois nizgavois v'oilamos. We are repeating when we daven the Shemona Esrei, mighty, powerful, deep, hidden secrets, tremendous koyach. If you take a look at the Nefesh HaChaim, he talks about that all we're obligated to have is the simple kavanah. But the words are so powerful. Lahavdil, it's like, you press open, you put a password, and all of a sudden you can do everything to the other end of the world. How could it be? You're sitting in a room, and you can actually send things to people on the other end of the globe. It's remarkable. We have to believe that we have this tremendous koyach HaTefilah. And if we believe in all the things that I mentioned, and if we believe in the koyach that each and every individual has, then we'll be able to accomplish anything. For ourselves as individuals, for our families, for communities, for Eretz Yisrael, for Klal Yisrael, and to be able to bring the Geula, the B'Kar B'Yameinu, Amen.
Shem Irgen Shir Yitar Moses Boston. I'd like to give a big ashikayach to Rabbi Kleinman for the inspiring drasha. I'd like to give a big ashikayach to Mr. and Mrs. David Nierenberg for exclusively sponsoring tonight's shir. On my side, I'd like to remind you once again, annual dinner is coming up. Great time to show you across the Tov to Irgen Shir Yitar, the Rabbanim Shiurim we've enjoyed, but add in the general. Sponsor one of the remaining shiurim of the summer. Call Irgen Shir Yitar 718-851-8651 or email tapecenter@yeshivanet.com for this great schus. Ashikach to everyone for coming. CDs of tonight's show will be available shortly. Rechananya ben Akashem Arot Sakadish Baruch Hu L'Zakis Es Yisrael Figure Hebel Tar Mitzvah Shneim Al Nech Hofes Aman Tzidka Yagdul Tar V'Yader.